Hi kids, and welcome to the next part. I'm really up for this one because what we're going to be doing now is the baking. Yeah, so we've done the unwrapping, which was tedious at times, and now we can finally start to work towards our end result and bake our high poly normals onto our low poly meshes because we have the unwrapping. So this is one you've all been waiting for. I had people on forums request that I really talk about the baking and hard versus soft edges stuff, that sort of things. So let's just get right to it. What I'm going to be baking in this video, the first one, is what I think is the easiest part. It's the body where the passenger sit of the car, because it's just one single solid mesh, and I'm pretty sure it won't cause too much problems. Some areas are a little bit tougher than others, but I'm sure we can fix those. So I'm just doing a little bit, tiny bit of preparing here still. Those splines on the side of the body, I still have to position those correctly. Just move them a little bit, and I'm also thinking that I added the turbo smooth on top of it. I'm checking if everything looks right. I'm attaching it. There we go. And it's rounding off the tops too much. That doesn't look very good, so I'm gonna have to fix that too. Just gonna have to add a little control edge there. Use the connect tool, move that up, and that should be fine. And do the same thing at the other side. Type a minus in front of it to, oh, not typing a minus, just moving it manually. There we go. Okay, so that looks okay. So this is the high poly mesh we'll be baking. And I also left that little piece of the gator. I learned the name of that part when I was eBaying for parts for my car. All that showed up was gators, so that's how I learned the word. Right, so anyway, I have the high poly here, I have the low poly unhidden, and you can see the layers that I've created. One of the main reasons that I organize everything into these layers is because of baking. You really need to hide and unhide this stuff a lot, and you don't want to do that manually. The layer manager is your friend here. So I have my two parts here. I've selected the low poly, I've opened the render to texture dialog with 0, I've enabled projection mapping, and then I hit pick to choose the correct mesh. When you do that, it adds a projection modifier on top, but most of the time that's pretty shitty. So you have to reset it and push the cage out again manually. And if you're really new to baking, I hope you aren't, because then this is going to confuse you. You should follow some other tutorials on that. What I'm mainly doing is here showing my tips if you're already into this process. The cage needs to completely encompass the high poly. The high poly cannot stick out through the cage of the low poly. So what I'm using here, it's a tip that I didn't use to do this, but this really helps a lot. The hitting the shaded button for the cage when the image is standing still shows you the cage as a shaded mesh, and that way you can really easily identify the areas where the high poly is sticking through your cage. So as you can see there in the center, I have some problems. Same thing here. You have to move the verts out so that you avoid these problems. As you can see, this is really tweaking and tricky business to get it right. Also, you don't want to move things out too much. You just want to do the bare minimum. And even then, you'll notice sometimes it might look fine as your shaded mesh, but it will still mess up when you're doing the actual rendering. So you have to watch out for that. Most of the time, you can really go by the shaded mesh. There we go. That one's looking okay too. Now I still have to do the transmission well there. Move those out too. Also, if you move the verts manually, you want to move out in the direction of the surface normal that is beneath that point. So you don't want to move them in a crazy direction that makes no sense. Try to move out in the same direction as it would when you use the push modifier. You can also use the push modifier on a selection, but I don't do that. I prefer to do it manually. It just makes more sense. You have more control. So some tiny parts that need to be moved there. Also, I'm starting with this mesh because it's I just mentioned it. It's an easy one. It's not really difficult. One of the main reasons is there aren't any parts sticking through each other. There aren't any crazy corners, save for the edges of the dashboard, and still I modeled that in a way that it wouldn't give me lots of problems. And there aren't any cylinders on this mesh, so really, it'd be hard to have this one fail on me, or to have a lot of trouble with this one. Pretty sure we can do this. So right now I think my cage is that looks good. I think I can work with this. I'm checking the mapping coordinates up there. You have to make sure they're set to use existing map channel. It's something beginners have lots of problems with. They set it to use automatic unwrap, and then we get foreign threads. Help, it's not working. But I'm sure you knew that already. So I turned on the super samplers. I set it to 2024 map size because that's going to be the final map size for the body. I don't think I have to go bigger. 2048, that'd be overkill, so I'm not doing that. Also, just a little note, it went a little bit quickly, but I'll get back to it. The super sampler is set to max 2.5 star. Max 2.5 star is the default sampler, and this one is okay quality with decent speed. So as you can see, I have a little baking error. I'm just going to check out my yeah, and apparently I have a little problem here. It's a bug in Max. If you if you start creating a normal map, it tends to remember the folder from a previous project. I have no clue why this is happening. Just now I was starting another project, and it did the same thing. It was using this random folder from a file I opened weeks ago, and it didn't want to switch to another one. So anyway, GSF 600, it's a different project. I'm just going to paste it in here. This doesn't mean I'm going to have to manually change the folder every time I bake, which sucks, but hey. So I'm getting some very weird shit here. It's very hard to tell what that is. A few baking errors in this small area there. And yeah, you know, I never get a bake 100% right the first time. I always have to do it a few times. It's just such a tricky process that you have to go back, tweak, fix. So I'm trying to find out what the problem is underneath the seats, and it seems like there's a cover there. But what I think would be the problem, I'm still looking for it, is the high poly does not have geometry there. So essentially, I'm baking. My low poly is covered up underneath the seats, but there is no high poly geometry there. So what's happening is the rays are shooting out quite far, and they're hitting the underside of the seat and everything. So all I have to do is I'm going to have to add some more high poly geometry there. Also, I noticed that these aren't exactly in the best position, so I'm moving them slightly. There we go, that's a little bit better. So you see, in these areas you don't really expect it. I mean, you have to be, it's almost impossible to predict this, but you have to know exactly how the bake is going to work to get everything 100% right. So moving these edges around a little bit, and I think I'm almost going to go back to the high poly to add that phase behind it. You know, at this very moment, I think I was still looking for it because I was really puzzled what was happening here. But while I'm narrating this, I already knew what happened, and I knew what I did to fix it. Yeah, I think I still haven't figured it out here. Oh, that's better already. There we go. I'm gonna open my normals again in Photoshop, and yeah, it looks like I fixed it. That's better. Okay. And it still seems like I didn't fix that on the side yet, but I'll get to that later then. Okay, so my bake is generally okay. There are a few small problems. I'm gonna have to check those out. What I'm gonna do now is immediately test my my normal map on my low poly mesh. I don't want to postpone this. Looking at it in Photoshop only tells you so much. So I'm just opening my own shader here. You can get that at my website. Should be linked all over the place in the tutorial. Then in the shader, I just enable normal map. I load the normal map and I turn on flip green because it's pretty much should be a default setting. I'm going to change that in a newer version. So looking at this, that is actually looking pretty good. I don't see many problems. In the center, we have a little problem over there. Some strange shading, and that the reason for that is because I need to split the edges at the symmetry seams. I'm gonna do that right away. It's a problem called, well, if you mirror normal maps on attached geometry, it can give you these sort of problems. Just flipping some edges to make sure it looks better. These edges make more sense that way. And these will also make more sense if I do it this way. Yep. I'm just checking every aspect out of this mesh because for normal maps you really have to do this. You have to be strict on yourself. Try and get the best result possible. Also here I have to flip these. I'll give problems if I don't do that. And that is better. Those look nice and straight now. I'm trying to see what gives the best results here. You might not be able to tell so well on this compressed video, but there are really slight shading differences if I turn these edges. So that's the reason I'm doing this. Okay. And generally that looks okay. So I'm just going to unhide my high poly now and render that again, because the turning of the edges that I did, it can actually affect the normal map. Doesn't always seem to do that, but I just want to make sure and rebake it. Also a bit of a problem, if you rebake, I have to hit reload in the shader to get it. Yeah, and apparently it's not. Just have to reassign the material. It sort of, I don't know, corrupts the instance of the material in your scene. Just reassign the material and it's fixed. So checking out my UVs, and I'm trying to find out what that problematic part is here, and that turns out to be the plane underneath the seat, which I've been talking about. And as I can see now, it's with the normal maps on, you can see what it's doing. It's baking onto the geometry behind it, which is not really working that well, since it's a plane. It's trying to bake a sort of what do you call that, a cube shape behind it. So there we go. You see, nothing there to catch those rays from my low poly and my high poly. So I'm just going to create some geometry for that. It won't be so hard. I just need to select a polygon. There we go. Move it. Move that down. This can just be really sloppy. I mean, it doesn't matter. Nobody is ever going to see that area there. And there we go, and hide all. I think I need to move it a little bit closer. Still we need to match it. Shouldn't be sloppy in that. The matching of your high and low poly needs to happen as correctly as possible. There we go. Move that up a little bit. Okay, that should be fine. I think I can rebake this now. And you can see there are some anti-aliasing problems there on my my mesh, and if small artifacts there, but they're really, I can ignore those. To get those aliasing problems fixed, I'm gonna have to use a better sampler, which I'll do right away. But as you can see, the bake is translating pretty well onto the low poly mesh. So what I'm doing now is I'm changing this to final quality, Hammersley, and set the filter setting to 1.0. This ensures maximum quality. As you can see, it's a lot slower. I don't know if I'm going to pause the vid here. Yeah, there. From now on, if I do slow renders, I pause the video and then resume it once the render was complete. So there we go. I've assigned my full quality bake. I'm going to open this one again. And if I zoom in, yeah, that's looking okay. Those darker edges you see around it is the padding and a little bit of surfaces blending into each other. It doesn't matter so much. Okay, I still have that weird artifact in the center to fix there, which won't be so hard. Let's see about that. Yeah, I still have this part to bake also. The artifact, I think I'll leave that for when I get to texturing. It's not that hard anyway. I just have to change the smoothing groups. It's not a priority right now. So my low poly, I pick the high poly gator. I'm going to add a normal map here. Set it to 1024. Render that out. I'll check the cage first. For such a simple object, the cage isn't messed up. But in general, just presume that the automatic cage generation is awful. Let's move this down a little bit. Scale it up. Oh, come on. Go scale it up a little bit. Scale that up too. Trying to get these parts correct. Sort of messing around a little bit here. Just gonna reset that. There we go, that's better. Just do the push again, and now I have to manually scale it. There you go, using push on selection and do a little bit of scaling on that part. There we go. This one can go a little bit bigger too. You see there's still a little bit of high poly coming through, so I need to scale this up too. Alright, bake, there we go. Some red at the top. And now I have to merge those normal maps. Well, first I'm gonna look at my bake again. It was baking to the wrong position again. There we go, I hate that. Okay, open it in Photoshop, and here's a little trick to do this. You use the alpha as selection, then go to layer, duplicate layer, and pick duplicate layer to another document. Thanks to one of my students, Tim, who told me about this. I had no clue. I just used the copy paste method, but using duplicate layer on a selection, you can duplicate selections to a different object. So yeah, it was actually being a little bit of a problem. There we go. You have to first duplicate it to a layer, and then duplicate that layer to another document. There we go. So there it is on top of my my body mesh. I merged it down. I saved it. I'm going to hide my high poly and simply assign my normal map to the gator object. There we go. That looks okay. So that's pretty much the bake. As you can see, when I zoom in here, the anti-aliasing is pretty good on that part. It's because I turned on the Hammersley sampling. Really helps a lot. Okay, just checking this out from all sides. As it's the first bake, I want to get a feel for the quality I'm aiming for. So now I'm looking at that part again, and going to try and fix that. Back into edit poly. And it's only that one that's giving me problems. It's probably because it's not in a flat plane. I turn to smoothing group 11 and then set these to 11.2. That means I've created a hard edge in the center, but not between the edges on the left side of it. There we go, that looks good. So if you mirror normal maps, you might have to do this, sort of make a hard edge in the center. Also, so take note of what I did with the splitting of smoothing groups and how my UVs are split. You should actually go back to the UV video if you want to check this out. I unwrapped this one completely manually. I show everything in the video. Especially check out the front side, what I did there, how I split the smoothing groups, and how the unwrapping was done there, and how it translates perfectly to nice rounded corners. So I'm going to be baking an ambient occlusion now also, just for the fun of it. I'm going to save most ambient occlusion baking for later. I'm just going to turn this to 1024. This is just a quick test because, I mean, body is the most shiny, the shiniest part in the entire car. I just want an ambient occlusion to have it look good. So I'm just using metal ray ambient occlusion here. And yeah, projection baking is still on. I'm not going to bake it with projection. For this tutorial I won't be projecting my ambient occlusion from my high poly onto my low poly because I think it's a tedious process. I tend to use different methods. So I've baked my ambient occlusion here. For the fuse map I'm choosing the ambient occlusion, turning on the fuse map, assigning the material, and there we go. We have my ambient occlusion with normal map, and that's looking pretty good. I'm going to unhide the rest of the stuff just to see how the engine, how the body sits compared to the rest of the car. And I'm going to render it again with yeah, there you go. Now you can see the intersecting parts. That makes more sense. If you bake it by itself as a standalone object, you won't get the effects of this rounding objects. Now that I've done that, it looks better. That's the reason I turned these on. Once again, this isn't the final method for ambient occlusion. This is just a test I'm doing because it's fun. I mean, it looks better if I do this. And just one problem with this stupid low poly ambient occlusion baking is it tends to ignore smoothing groups in more rounded areas. I mean, it has this faceted effect. But once again, this is a temporary ambient occlusion map, so I'm not going to be bothered too much by that. Turning on reflections here, but they're not really showing up that well on a white material, so I'm going to change the color. It's a little feature from my shader. If you turn on color diffuse map, it multiplies a color with your diffuse map, so it's perfect for coloring an ambient occlusion map. It's completely meant for this sort of stuff. I'm changing my specular color. Oh, look at that. And I still need to use a little bit of Fresnel bias. Oh man, this is really looking nice, right? Put a little bit of color in those reflections. And the reason I'm also doing this is because it's easier to tell to see the effect of your normal maps if you're using reflections and specular on it. I mean, you can really see the full benefits of your normal map if you do this, especially with reflections. So I put my ambient occlusion in the specular map also, so I don't get any speculars in the dark areas. And in the reflect map, I'm also going to load it, turn on reflection map. There we go. I think I'm leaving the specular on, but turning the reflection off there. Okay, so that's it for the first part of baking. I hope you learned something. This was a simpler object. We're going to do some more complex and trickier parts after this.